It's me again, Laura. Again, you'll only hear my husband. He's in the background recording. And we are going to continue answering questions from Agnes in relation to the video relationships and twin flame ray versus soulmates. This is her second question. If a friend asks for advice about their relationship and they seem unhappy, unsafe, or are in a relationship with someone they probably shouldn't be in, does it create karma for you if you tell them to end it?
Ooh.
Uh-huh. What is the answer to that question?
Okay, so let's break the question down.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
The first part of the question, and you'll see how interesting this becomes.
If a friend asks for advice about their relationship and they seem unhappy, unsafe, or in a relationship with someone they probably shouldn't be in.
Okay, we could stop there. Now, please keep in mind again that every answer we give is based on the teaching itself, that we've been exposed to from the Ascended Masters. Mm-hmm. It's not our opinion, this is the way it is. The key to that question is what? Based on what you know about the teachings.
Well, if someone's asking you for your advice, then if you tell them to end it, they're the ones who still have to decide. You're not creating karma as far as what I can see, because you're just giving them the advice that they asked for, and you're doing it based on what you see and know at the time.
Okay, since you've jumped that far, we're done with the video, right? You just answered the question. All right, we're done. Let me turn it off here.
Smarty pants.
No, that's good.
Uh-huh.
What I was expecting from you to say
something completely different
well, the first thing we learned from the Ascended Masters is what? You don't go and get involved in somebody else's business.
Right, you don't go telling people what they should or shouldn't do.
No, it's not even that.
Okay.
If your help is not asked, or your opinion is not asked for, you don't give it.
Right.
So that's what I thought you were going to say.
Oh.
And that question states specifically if
a friend asks for advice.
So that's the first thing. The friend actually asked for advice. Mm-hmm. So it is okay to give the advice. That's the first thing. Okay. All right? You could be that friend, looking at your friend, going through those relationships, whether it's with a student or a married person, but if they don't ask your opinion, you should not be trying to give them any advice or even interfere in that person's business. Mm-hmm. Am I making sense?
You make sense to me.
So that's what I thought you were going to talk about.
Okay.
Instead, you answered the question. So, made the video really short. So I'm trying to lengthen the video now. Right? But so I wanted to stress that so people can understand, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
That you only give your opinion when it is requested. As much as you might want to do it, you're not supposed to, because just by doing that, you're creating karma.
Okay.
Because you're getting, how do they say? You are like jumping into somebody's business. Mm-hmm. They use a word for that. I probably don't know it because it's a word I don't like, but whatever it is.
An American cliche, more than likely.
Right. Anyway, like something into people's business. But anyway, so you shouldn't do that.
Okay.
The next part is, I like the way the question is worded. The person seems unhappy, right? Mm-hmm. But that's based on probably what this person has shared with you, their best friend or their friend that they're seeking advice from. And then, what's the other part? So then you tell them?
They seem unhappy, unsafe, or in a relationship with someone they probably shouldn't be in. Does it create karma for you if you tell them to end it?
Okay. So now, for you to go and tell them to end it, how do you know that that's the best thing for them?
I wouldn't.
Right? Mm-hmm. So it's not a rhetorical question, but it's a valid question, not for you to answer, but for Agnes to
think about.
Exactly. Right? Because whatever she sees or feels is from her perspective, isn't it?
Right. And a lot of people do things based on what we have seen in society, and that's, if you see someone in an abusive relationship, you should encourage them to leave. But that's not always the way it should be.
Well,
based on what we know with karma.
Unless if you know somebody's situation, meaning their karmic situation, it's hard to tell what you should be telling somebody. Because at that point, you are simply stating something based on what you see in the physical. But you don't know what's going on in the spiritual realm. And that's the key. That's where everything starts, in the spiritual realm. So, I go back to the question, how would you know that that's the best thing for that individual? You really don't. So you should be really careful with something like that. Now, if you remember, there's a story in the Bible where they had Mary Magdalene. There was more than one Mary Magdalene, by the way, but they made her appear like she's a prostitute, right? In the Bible, she's a prostitute.
The prostitute Mary Magdalene that's written about then? To differentiate them?
All right, could put it that way. Anyway, so here's Mary Magdalene. They paint her as a prostitute. And people decided, they surrounded her and said, okay, you're a prostitute. You're doing things we don't like, that we don't appreciate that in our community. So we're going to take care of you. And they surrounded her and they have all these stones and they're going to stone her to death, right? That's the way it was back then. Well, as you said earlier, that's the way the society was. Somebody does something society doesn't accept, well, they'll take care of it. It only made sense for them to want to stone her to death. And it was legal to do that. It's not as if they'd get arrested for it.
Right.
They had a good reason for doing it as far as they were concerned.
Those are their laws.
But Jesus comes along, or Jesus came along, and you say, hey, wait a minute now. This is the ghetto version, like you would say, right? Jesus said, wait a minute, hold on, what's going on here? And they said, well, she's been a prostitute here and, causing chaos in our community. We know it's not right, so we're going to take care of her, as in stone her to death. And Jesus said what?
You who have not sinned, cast the first stone.
Right?
I remember that part of the story.
So why would he say that? What does that mean?
That means if you can truly look at yourself and know that you have not done any wrong, then go ahead and throw the stone at her because she's done the wrong.
Right? Now, that's his perspective, right? You're just saying, wait a minute now. What you guys are saying is, you can do that, you have the right to do that, because as far as you're concerned, from your perspective, she's done something wrong, because your society doesn't accept that. However, have you guys done anything that maybe is not so good, but you're not being stoned for? See, they didn't think about that, because from their perspective, she's the one doing something wrong. Then while he was doing that, though, what was he doing?
He was writing in the sand.
He was writing in the sand. One of my favorite stories. He was writing in the sand.
You've probably heard it in one or two other videos.
And if you notice, he didn't tell them anything about, if you don't have any sins, the guy that doesn't have any sins cast the first stone. He didn't tell them that until after he wrote in the sand. See, he wrote in the sand first, then he looked at them and then made that statement. Why do you think that was?
Well, because I know the story, because he was writing their sins in the sand.
Where did he get those from?
From whoever told him on the spiritual side.
No, he saw the karmic record.
He saw it.
Because he's Jesus. He can see the Akashic record.
Jesus was tuned in.
Right. All right. He can see the Akashic record. Now, what is the Akashic record? It's where everything is recorded on each one of us, every moment of our lives, in every lifetime. He saw that, and he could see what they had done that wasn't right. And he wrote some of those things. He didn't write all of them, right? But he wrote enough on each one of them for them to say, wait a minute, this guy knows some things about me that people don't know. Well, by then, other people knew because they were reading in the sand, except they don't know who it belongs to, right?
Right.
So they decided not to cast a stone. Now, I tell that long story because here are these people being quite noble in their intention, because the law says, here's someone that's a prostitute, and if you meet a prostitute, you have to get rid of her because she creates havoc in the community. They're just following the laws. That was what the society accepted at that moment. Jesus comes in, but they don't know anything about her Akashic record, about what her karma is that she has to balance
Right.
in that lifetime, because they don't have that sight. But Jesus stepped up and said, okay, I can see what you guys are seeing. You guys don't know anything about her Akashic record. Now, he didn't say it like that, but by
Right.
writing them down is pretty much what he's saying, right? So you have to look way deeper than just what you see
On the surface.
on the physical, exactly, on the surface. There's a whole lot more to it, and he proved that by writing in the sand to show them, I know more about you than you even know about yourself. So there's a whole lot more about this woman here. Don't judge her just by what you see right now. There's a whole lot more to her that you don't see. And it's the same thing with any relationship or anything that we deal with. Unless we know the person's Akashic record, unless we know what their karmic record is, it's tough to go and give advice to anybody.
I was wondering how this was all going to tie together here.
But does it make sense?
It makes sense.
It's like us and our kids. Yeah, they've told you in the past, you've told me, how they say what about me,
How you don't listen?
right? That I just want them, I just tell them what I think they should do, and then that's
Expect
it.
them to do it, right? But they forget that you've got the insight.
Exactly. In the
That happens
past.
a lot. Our kids are like, Dad is just so unfair. Well, let's think about this here. Dad was probably told something while you were talking to him. And therefore, that's why Dad just cut you off and said, no, this is what you should do. So
Right.
it's getting better, though.
Because they understand that now.
Yes.
But in the beginning, when I hadn't fully embraced this gift, then I didn't tell them, well, this is what Mother Mary says or whomever, because I wasn't sure myself. So maybe in a way, we really can't blame them. Because I wasn't really being transparent with it either. But now I will tell them, no, this is what Jesus says. It's not my opinion.
And if it is his opinion, he'll say, in my opinion.
Exactly. That
And the
is true.
kids will know, oh, well, this is just Dad talking. Let me go talk to Mom now.
Exactly. They probably just, the moment they hear me say, it's my opinion, like,
Let me go find Mom.
They just dismiss the whole thing. Right? But so that's the difference, right? That's the difference. That for us, it's a wonderful thing, because instead of giving our opinion, we have the direct source. We can say, well, this is how you've been guided. And then we stay out of it. And whether or not we have a preference doesn't even matter anymore. And there have been cases where we have preferences, and that's not the way it's turned out when they get
Right.
guidance, right?
Right.
But we just know, okay, that's none of
Everything
our
happens
business.
for a reason.
Exactly.
Let's see what takes place.
So going back to that question, the last part was what?
Does it create karma for you if you tell them to end it, meaning the relationship?
Well, I don't know if it creates karma for that individual, just like you said when you started the video.
Because the person was asking for advice in the first place.
That's correct. The only catch is, did you overstep your boundaries by telling them to do that when you don't know what their karmic record is really like?
Right.
Make sense?
Did you go overboard trying to convince them
That's correct.
to leave?
So to answer that question, because you approached for your opinion, you're supposed to give your opinion. As long as you don't force your opinion on that individual. So if you said, yes, you should leave, and the person doesn't leave, then you shouldn't be going back and saying, I can't believe you didn't listen to me.
Right.
The moment you start doing that, you're putting pressure on a person now, and it's not asking you for advice anymore. You are trying to take over the person's life.
Right.
So,
Okay. Hope that answers your question. If not, please respond and let us know.